Welcome to the Volunteer Nation podcast, bringing you practical tips and big ideas on how to build, grow, and scale volunteer talent. I'm your host, Tobi Johnson, and if you rely on volunteers to fuel your charity, cause, membership, or movement, I made this podcast just for you. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Volunteer Nation podcast. I'm your host, Tobi Johnson, and I am very excited to talk about, I'm going to geek out a little bit on it, Google Grants. And if you are looking for volunteers and you are not leveraging the power of Google search, it's time. It's beyond time. And so I have an expert, Clay Mansell, with me. He's going to talk about what Google Grants are, how to get them, and just to help us understand how these grants that can be up to $10,000 a month that can help you put out some free advertising in Google so that you show up at the top of the search results. People are still going on Google. This is where they find their information. And even where Google has AI also that is finding organizations. And if you're not showing up at the top of Google in the regular search, you're most likely not going to show up in the AI-based search. And we've done a lot of work in our search engine optimization at Volunteer Pro, and we're lucky enough after 10 years of working at it that we show up at the top of Google for volunteer management training. So we know what it's all about. We've struggled. We've tried to figure it out, and we've learned a lot along the way. But I'm happy to hand the mic over to an expert to talk about this and really give you guys strategy and then what to say to your comms people when you've got to go talk about that grant, because they're the ones that probably know whether or not you have one and how to get one. Okay? So how's that sound to everybody? If it's good, raise your hand. I can't see you, but you can see me. Raise your hand. Yes, I'm ready to go. So welcome, Clay, to the pod.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to talk about the Google programs.
Awesome. So before we get started, though, I'm going to read Clay's bio so you get a sense of where he's from and what he does. He is a serial entrepreneur, though. I'm not reading his whole bio because he has many companies going. He is out there just making things happen and shaking things up in his community. But Clay is the president of a full-service advertising agency, Mansell Media, with offices in Clinton, Mississippi, and Memphis, Tennessee. So he's just down the road from East Tennessee, really. Mansell Media has a team of 14 dedicated marketing professionals. Some of the team have been with Mansell since the founding in 2010. And so they are a tight-knit group who are helping organizations, both nonprofit and public sector, as nonprofit and private sector, I should say, do better with marketing. He also serves on several boards, including the Clinton Chamber of Commerce, Main Street Clinton, which is interesting, Clay. I've done some work with different Main Street groups, helping them with their volunteer engagement. So I absolutely know what Main Street's all about. Mississippi College Alumni Board, and as board chair of Merit Health Central. Despite his many responsibilities, Clay's greatest pride is his family. He and his wife, Amanda, are parents of 3 children, Annabelle, Bentley, and Grayson, and they've opened their home to 10 foster children over the past 4 years. So welcome to the pod, Clay. I think you're in good company here.
Awesome. Yes, thanks for having me. I love the Main Street Connection. It's one of my top favorite nonprofits. We do a lot with that here in Clinton and in the whole state of Mississippi.
Yeah, and if folks aren't familiar with Main Street, it's an organization that works with, usually it's smaller communities where they're doing beautification, they're doing economic development, they're doing events. There's just so much going on to bring people to small communities and to really strengthen community spirit, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Is that what you think, Clay? That's the way you see Main Street?
Absolutely. That's what it does. And in Clinton specifically, it helped revitalize our Old Town area. We've had lots of wins with getting buildings restored and, building that was past vacant, wasn't in the best shape. They've gotten it where it can take a tenant, and our occupancy in downtown Clinton's basically 100% now. So it's a great nonprofit. I really, really like the work they do.
Yeah, it's really sort of practical, but also community-based. I love it. I've worked with I've trained and coached several nonprofits that are working with Main Street organizations, and with, particularly in Wisconsin is an area that I worked in a lot. Well, let's get started talking about what we're really here to talk about, which is Google Ads and Google Grants. But before we get into that, I also want to just ask you how you got into the world of serving nonprofits because, on your website, you call it out. Look, we're here to serve nonprofits, or that's one of our customer bases. Tell us how you got into that kind of work.
I would love to say that there was this sophisticated plan and we chased it, but that's really not how it worked. Just with the world that I'm in, I'm involved with a lot of nonprofits as I serve on their boards and stuff. So we started really that way, helping the nonprofits I was on. And then our customer base just kind of naturally gravitated. We had a decent amount of nonprofits, and they probably, like you realize, they refer people. Like if they have somebody doing a good job for them, they pass us on to their executive director friend that is a staff of one that needs some help in this world. So that's really how the nonprofit side of Mansell Media has grown over the years. There's a lot of word of mouth.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, you might not be surprised, but maybe you'd be surprised that most of our guests kind of by happy accident ended up in their roles. So many folks are
Yeah.
leaders of volunteers or people in the nonprofit space, and they are often, I'll ask people, how did you get into volunteer engagement? And they'll say, well, I didn't go to college for it.
Yeah.
So we come to this space because we have a heart for it and because people gravitate to us because we're mission based. So here's another question I love to ask people, all our guests come on the Volunteer Nation. Why do you think volunteerism and public service are important in today's world?
Oh goodness, volunteerism, the right level of it can make a community. If you see a community that has a great volunteer base, and that's usually several organizations that are actively recruiting, they'll improve the quality of life in their town or their community, not only in the event that they're doing or the mission of that nonprofit. But when you get 20 or 30 people together, working together for a cause, they build friendships, they understand, they see what it takes in their community. And I say community, it might just be an organization. I'm the biggest proponent of volunteerism. I talk about it a lot, whether it's through the Chamber of Commerce, which that level of volunteer looks different than a different volunteer at an organization that may not have a staff. It will change your community when you have the right level of volunteerism going in and the opportunities available. Because
Yeah.
not, I mean, I see people that volunteer for things, it's not my cup of tea, but other things are. So
Yeah.
it's a it's a great deal for community to be heavily involved that way.
Yeah, yeah, could not agree more that, and there's a lot of hidden volunteering going on. I think people don't realize, if you go out and your kids are on sports teams, usually the coaches are volunteers. If you're part of a faith community, often most of the layperson work or community-based work is done by volunteers. If you go to a hospital and get care, usually there's volunteers working in that hospital. Most schools have volunteers. So it's really, I totally agree. There's a network of people that are making that social capital is really holding communities together. Let's talk about your work and how you got involved with Google Grants in particular. So you've got a full service marketing and media company, but why focus on Google Grants and how'd you get into that? It's been a long time. I remember back in the day, now this is going to date me, y'all. I was living in the Bay Area working at a nonprofit, and I was invited by Google, a bunch of people were invited to learn about paid advertising on Google. And I remember at the time I was like, I don't know. I don't think we need to do this right now. And I went away from that meeting and went on with my work. And I remember back to that day thinking, wow, what an opportunity that I missed way back when. And that was like, I don't know, back in the 90s, I think. So how long have you been involved with Google Grants and and Google Ads and working with SEO? How'd you get into it? How long you been involved in it?
We have probably only been doing it now 7 or 8 years. The very first account that we started a Google grant for, they actually asked us about it. And I do want to share, because when you're in the nonprofit world and you hear the word grant, you probably cringe and you're thinking reporting and a 1,000-page essay. We ought to just call it Google free money, like our Google free
Yeah,
ads. Grant is really not the right word for it. There's no reporting.
right.
I mean, there is on their end, but it's all that they're wanting to maintain a certain click-through rate and things like that, but they see it before you do. And to apply for it is not hard. So I really when we got this first one, and it was the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame. No, yeah, Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame. I just started telling everybody about it. I was like, Google has free ads for you. Go apply for it. But even then, and I kind of kidded about this, so many nonprofits I work with, they have one employee or they have half of an employee. And they're literally like, I don't care how easy it is. Cannot do one more thing. So then we just started offering it as a service through Mansell Media. But and I will share too that the amount sounds great. It's $10,000 a month grant. But if you're a smaller nonprofit and you're like, let's say you're focused on the town you're in, you're not going to be able to spend $10,000. In fact, that first account we had in the NC Sports Hall of Fame was one that was able to spend more of their money because they're talking about an athlete that has more than even just Mississippi name brand ID. So their account in peak months would spend 7 or 8 thousand, but we never maxed out on the 10, even with that account.
Yeah.
So that's how we kind of got into it, and it just really made it a mission to tell people about it. Whether you use us or not, I just want you to go get the money because no nonprofit has $10,000 a month that I've run across. Just we don't even like, hey, here's 10,000 extra dollars. Let's go buy advertising. So
Yeah.
it'll help your mission. It'll help you recruit volunteers. It'll do all the things that you wish you could do, and Google's gonna let you do it and not cost you any money.
Yeah, I mean, if I could get $10,000 with free ad money, and so I would get. Now, I'll just explain to folks a little bit that, when you get a Google grant, you're basically getting free what we call pay-per-click advertising. So whenever you go on to Google and you search for something, you'll see all these sponsored results pop up. These are paid ads for the most part. If they're nonprofits, then they probably have a Google grant. And if I, as a small business person, could have a Google grant, I'm telling you right now, I would be all over it. And I did pay for Google pay-per-click advertising when we first started Volunteer Pro, the digital side of Tobi Johnson and Associates back in 2015, because our website was new. And if I didn't drive a lot of traffic to our website, nobody would ever find it. So we did invest early on in Google ads, and I might return back to it, but they're more expensive than Facebook ads. And so if you've done any other advertising on social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook ads, Google ads are generally more expensive. But if you want to show up where people are searching, this is the way to go. And of course, nonprofits can get grants where you can get all this pay-per-click free advertising and get the word out. Clay, most people think of this type of pay-per-click advertising they think about it for fundraising, for events, for more of that side of the house. They might have their development department they might have a Google grant where they're doing fundraising through it. They might use it only for their year-end campaigns or special events, or maybe they have a capital campaign going. But how can it be used to recruit volunteers, which is what we want to talk about today?
It will let people find you. I truly believe that people want to volunteer, or you may have a high school senior that just has to have volunteer hours, and their mama is like, well, I don't know where to send you. Let me go Google it. Let's look. They're going to put in their search bar places to volunteer in the name of your town. This will help you get found. But it's a whole piece of the pie. It's a whole big picture. You've got to be running those ads all the time and talking about all the things, even when you're talking about your annual banquet and you're trying to get people to know about that. When people see that, they're seeing your name, they're liking what you do. So then when they are ready to volunteer, they may even Google your name instead of just a nonprofit. So, and Google requires you to log into your account once a month. It's part of I say it's easy and it's still easy. That is one requirement. You got to log in because they want you to have an active ad. You can have your nonprofit one always running,
Yeah.
365 days a year. But when your annual banquet comes up or your drawdown or your work day or your community disposal day. All of those ads need to be created and they all work together. The annual banquet ad will funnel people to you as a volunteer through that top of mind awareness, just knowing that you exist, just seeing you. That's what marketing is. Even no matter how long ago, before computers were even invented, they still had a class somewhere that talked about impressions.
Hmm.
Your professor, mine said you got to see it 8 times before it clicks. So the Google grant gives a nonprofit that ability to stay out there. You just
Hmm.
keep seeing their name, and that helps on the volunteerism. Now you will have people that have never heard of you that just want to volunteer, and they may find you for the first time, and that's great too. But you want to take the Google ad program, the grant program, and map it out a little bit. Like what ads are going to run when, and make sure you can have a couple of sets running at any given time, depending on how busy your nonprofit is, during that quarter, that month.
Yeah. I love this idea that you're, recommending and sharing this insight around sort of, multi-touch marketing and omnipresent marketing where, folks might see you on social media, they might see you at a tabling event, somebody might talk about you, a friend might talk about you. They might have even been to your nonprofit or driven by. And when the time comes that they think to themselves, you know what, I want to volunteer or I want to donate. I've got some money. It's the end of the year. I'm going to give some money. What about that nonprofit? And they'll type into Google the name of your nonprofit. So one of the ads to have evergreen is just the keyword of the name of your nonprofit. So
Uh-huh.
they can go to your homepage. That's sort of like just a general baseline where people can find you. And if you become top of mind, or I wonder what's going on with that nonprofit right now. People are, sitting around binging Netflix on their couch with their phone in their hand, or they're watching TV with their family. And, people who like to be on their phone will just be like browsing around. A thought will come to their mind. They'll go into Google and go, what about blah, blah, blah? I mean, this is what people do. And
Uh-huh.
so when they're thinking about those type of thoughts, what about blah, blah, blah? And in this case, what about volunteering? What about that nonprofit? Clay, why does, we kind of talk about top of mind and, hey, what about that nonprofit? But what makes search traffic from a Google grant, so this pay-per-click advertising, what makes it so effective for locating not only people who are kind of, let me learn about this nonprofit. Let me see what they're up to. But people who are like, you know what? I want to volunteer right now. What makes a Google grant or a Google the best place to advertise for that kind of thing?
Well, Google learns us. So they know what we're looking for, probably maybe sometimes before you do, I feel like it. So they're going to immediately pick up on what you're searching for. And if you didn't have that Google ad grant, Google doesn't know you exist either. And that's a big piece of the puzzle too. Um, the nonprofits are listening and they're embracing this. I would do a little research on your website, what works, because Google has a lot of different things that they're looking for that will make your grant more effective. They want you to be updating your website. And in the nonprofit world, the more places that are linking to your website. So
Yep.
let's say your local chamber is linking back to you. They call it your DA score, your domain authority.
Right.
And like your website, like if
Hmm.
you're linking back to nonprofits, you're linking back to your Main Street program, Google starts recognizing that. They're like, this website is talking about this website. They're going to organically move you up some. And then when you have that Google ad grant and they're seeing what you're doing, they're searching for stuff in all that spider web of Google, it's going to make you come up because theoretically, you're not going to be the only one running Google grant ads for volunteers. And so
Right.
you're still in the race to be the first top result. So it is the time commitment. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. Now you can set those Google ad grants and you may have 30 minutes a month to go update them. You're still going to get a positive net result from them. But if
Yeah.
you can read the next blog on what is Google looking for. And speaking of blogs, they want a blog on your website that you update once a week, once a month, whatever you can do. I could talk for 24 hours about the things that Google wants and what you could do, but hours in the day are sometimes a factor as well.
Yeah, and pay-per-click advertising, it's not that you're not gonna show up in the organic search results. So, you might show up, scroll way down to find you, or you might already enjoy one of the top, when if somebody typed into Google volunteer opportunities, I'm here in Knoxville, Tennessee, volunteer opportunities in Knoxville, your nonprofit might show up at the top organically because a lot of people point their websites to you because you get a lot of traffic because you have a blog, all these things. But if you add an advertising, you're actually adding fuel to the fire and you're showing up in more places. And so it does increase also what we call your organic search. So you get the bonus of a sponsored placed paid ad at the top of the page, but you also get the benefit of better what we call search engine optimization or SEO. Can you maybe give us, Clay, an example of how a Google grant might be used to recruit volunteers? Like, what are the specifics that people would want to think about?
Well, you want to be very intentional about it. So if you're talking about you've launched your ad, you may have your tagline in the text and a specific call to action. But when they click that, you don't have to send them to your home page because
Mm.
if they're thinking about volunteerism and they go to your home page and your home page is all about your next big event, and they've got to find the drop down and it's below give, come up with a landing page. So when somebody clicks on volunteerism, what opens up is how to volunteer in a very simple form, or a click to call, or they can just call, or if you have a once a month volunteer meeting, all that information is super, super easy to find. The less clicks, the better. In fact, the goal is to click the ad and there's the information that they want to see
Mhm.
when they're doing that would probably be the most important thing. You would be surprised how many people click a link and it goes to their homepage. And unless your homepage is about volunteerism or how to volunteer and you can see it right there, you're going to lose people. Our attention span is crazy short. There's a
Yeah.
lot of studies that how many clicks we will make, and it's a low number. It's not click here, drop down, click here. So
Yeah.
create a landing page about volunteerism that when you talk about it. It doesn't just have to be just for your Google grant. If you're on social media making a post that, hey, our big annual banquet's coming up, we need 12 people at the check-in table, and you put that same link can be used in social media, and they can link right back to there. We picked a bunch on Main Street. If you send it to your Main Street director and they put in their email blast, that link, I mean, it's a great resource to have a dedicated page and then use that link and not your homepage link.
Yeah, we do a lot of training in our Volunteer Pro Impact Lab around, and when I do coaching and consulting with clients, we'll talk about volunteer recruitment hub pages. It's sort of like a website within a website. So you'll have your main volunteering page, and then you can set up separate subpages if you have multiple volunteer opportunities. Maybe you have an opportunity for corporate groups. Maybe you have an event coming up. That's a different page. Maybe you have a tutoring program that's ongoing volunteers. Maybe you have, and then you can have that main page that links, but you can also link to those key opportunity pages if that's who you're and what you're recruiting for right now. So you don't even need to just do a general call for volunteers throughout the year with your Google grant. You could actually map it out and go, well, when are we going to focus on each of these roles that we need to fill and what time of year works best, or, running up to an event, obviously, that'd be a good time. So there's a lot of ways to say, and I totally agree. In fact, on people's website, in nonprofit websites, one of the biggest challenges I see is that there's no mention of volunteering at all. It's generally there, but it's in the get involved, and then there's a long drop down, and people are like diving in. They're like, I worked with a museum once, a science museum, and they had, I don't know, it was like 6,000 or 10,000 people coming to their website every month because they had an IMAX theater and people were buying tickets and all that. It was a big deal. And I said, you know what? You're getting less than like 50 people a month or less to your volunteer page. Why do you think that is? And, because I did some back end looking at like the traffic, and I said, there's no mention of it on your homepage. You got to click forever to find like this hidden gem of like, guess what? We like volunteers to come help, you know? So even though you're going to send people in your Google grant, you're going to send people in those ads directly to volunteer pages. I would say also make sure that on your homepage, we have no problem putting a donate button on our homepage. No problem whatsoever. But there's never, hardly ever a volunteer now page. And
Yeah.
if your organization can't survive without volunteers, then it doesn't make, it makes no sense to not include that. I mean, have you seen this? It's like one of my pet peeves. Sorry, I was on a soapbox for a minute.
No, you just described every nonprofit. You're dead on with how they do it. And another thing that the nonprofits is you're starting to sign up for this grant, you can do testing. You
Mm,
can, the day that you sign up for this, if you're managing it internally, you're not going to be a Google ad expert, but you
right.
can launch different ads and you can see that this one's getting 22 clicks a day, but this one's getting 400 clicks a day, and you can see what works. And you will be surprised at what works. If there's a silver bullet, we could all make a lot of money if there was. But your nonprofit, what triggers somebody is different from the nonprofit right next door to you. There's different keywords, there's different reasons somebody wants to get involved. But I would encourage you to, anybody that signs up for it or has it already, it's free money.
Yeah.
Launch more than one ad. For the exact same thing, if you're sitting there and you're talking with your board president and you're like, well, I don't know if we should do this or this. Do them both and see what works.
Yeah.
I also don't want to make it sound complicated.
Yeah.
If you're brand new to it and you launch one ad, high
Yeah.
five, launch that one ad, learn it, get comfortable with it, and then next month launch two ads and just get more comfortable with it. I have some people that are a little bit trigger shy on doing it. Just do it, and then we can work
Yeah.
to build up to the multiple ads and the testing and the calendar and the schedule and all the things that'll make it the most effective.
Yeah, I mean, bias towards action, y'all. Bias towards action. I talk about this a lot in our Impact Lab, that especially in digital marketing, we just launched a scorecard, a quiz, and folks can go on our website and they can take the quiz and answer a few questions, and we give them a report that tells them about their maturity level and where they're at and where they should focus their energy to improve their impact. Well, particularly vis-a-vis volunteers. And, it took us a long time to put this together. And at some point, I said to my marketing associate, you know what? We just need to pull the trigger, make it
Mhm.
happen. And the data will tell us. And in the end, you will not, whatever you do with a Google ad and whatever we're doing with our scorecard, it's not going to be perfect in the beginning anyway, because we can't read minds. And we can do research on Google, and it's not very hard, y'all. I did this myself and I knew very little about it, and I taught myself how to do it. But when you're setting up a Google ad, that you can search by keywords, what are the words people are typing in the top of Google to find something? I would start with volunteer opportunities and then your name, your hometown name, or with kids or with animals or for teens or whatever you think people are looking for. But you can look in Google and they'll tell you how many people in your area are typing that in, or in the world or in the US are typing that in. And so they'll give you some hints about what might work. So whenever people type that in Google, it will show up in their search on their phone or on their computer in Google, and your ad will show up at the top. So not every time, but a lot of times. So let's take a quick break, Clay, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about maybe how volunteer managers can work with marketing and communications departments, who are many of these folks are often wearing many hats and they're busy, but it is important that they collaborate, or with their fundraising folk. We'll talk a little bit about that after the break. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, gang, we'll be back right after this break with our chat with Clay Mansell about Google Grants and how they can be leveraged to recruit volunteers. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Hey friends, have you ever felt overwhelmed and unable to focus on the right things at the right time? Maybe you're not even sure where to put your time and energy to get the most traction with your volunteer program. Well, guess what? We've got a tool that can help you. It's called the Volunteer Strategy Scorecard. In about 3 minutes, you can get a PDF report that helps you understand where your gaps are, where you can focus energy to get big traction, and what your maturity levels are across 5 domains of volunteer engagement. It's a super cool tool. It's taken us a while to get it out, so I'm really excited it's finally found its way into the world. I hope you'll check it out. Just click on the link inside the show notes or in the link in the comments below and get started. Again, it only takes 3 minutes, and then you can get a lot of clarity on your next steps. Okay, we're back with our discussion with Clay Mansell about how to use Google Grants for volunteer engagement. We've been talking a little bit about how we can use this free advertising to let the community know that you have opportunities available. We talked a little bit about the importance of landing pages. So making sure you have a website that has a volunteer page that when people type in Google and they see that ad and they click on that ad, they don't go to your website and get lost. That consistency is so important across media, as well as from social media, your newsletter, wherever you're sending people. Don't make people have to click a ton when they get to your website. So, Clay, when we talk about Google Grants, and usually a nonprofit might already have one, right?
Yes.
How would, I'm a volunteer manager. I'm thinking to myself, heck yeah, I want to get free advertising for my volunteer opportunities. This is a no-brainer. How do I go about it? Where should they go? I'm assuming marketing, but it might be the fundraising folk. How should they approach this collaboration and finding out whether or not a grant exists and how to use it?
Like within their own organization.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that a couple of times. And also another thing, which is not actually your question, but you see turnover in organizations, and
Yeah.
there may be a Google grant that the current team doesn't know about. We've had
Mm-hmm.
that come up once or twice. And it just doesn't get filtered down. So I would encourage the volunteer coordinator, add that line item to your job description that you're going to have to be the liaison between whether it's marketing, communications, and make sure you're getting what you need out of it.
Mm.
Working with them. So if you're on this podcast and you're like, I really want this, go visit with them. If it's important enough to you, and I can tell you it would be, if you don't have it, just apply for it for them without ruffling any feathers. If they give you kind of the green light, I would hate to see an organization not apply for this grant because we're not sure who's supposed to apply for it.
Mm.
Sit down, get everybody in a room, and maybe y'all want to tag team it. And every organization is so different in how they work. And I'm very well aware there's one organization, at least watching this, that probably every single title we just mentioned, that one person wears every title.
Right.
They're volunteer communications, marketing, and they may be the executive director too. But
Yep.
in an organization that's blessed to have a larger staff, the volunteer part of this could affect your organization way more than a $50 donation. A $50 donation, that's great, but you get a volunteer, whether they come around for that same event every year or they're working the volunteer desk 2 hours a week for the next 10 years, volunteers are key to organizations. So I would just encourage the volunteer coordinator to work with communications, marketing, the executive director, show them this podcast and see how you can get the grant kicked off.
Is there a way folks can figure out it? Let's say everybody's left the organization. Nonprofits do have churn in staff. Is there a place where people can check with Google to say, do we have a grant that's active or can we re-up a grant?
Yeah, hopefully.
Clay's okay. If you're not watching YouTube, Clay is he's taking a deep breath. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, we run into roadblocks a lot, but hopefully in a nonprofit that you're using, like your website is your email address. So you're like, I'm Clay Mansell at mansellmedia.net.
Right.
So that proves a lot to Google if you have access to that domain. And I did want to just mention real quick or talk about Google has other things for nonprofits. They have Workspace and they have some
Mm.
YouTube things. I know that's why a whole nother podcast. I just want to spit that out there. They have other tools for nonprofits that don't cost anything, even your email and all that. But your email is kind of the key to unlocking it and getting back into your Google Analytics, all
Okay.
the Google things. It's your email with your domain. So whatever the domain is, if you have an email address at that will help you unlock it. That could be the hardest thing that Google makes you jump through. I said the Google Grant program is really easy. But if you lose access to your Google profile for your nonprofit, it's an extremely challenging issue to regain control of that. So I have PTSD when you say that because sometimes we're spending a lot of hours trying to get access back for, and it's not just nonprofits, any organization, somebody that has the keys to it that has not made anybody else, like an owner of the Google profile or the analytics page, it does create issues from time to time.
So I will link in the show notes to the Google Grants page. So if folks are starting from scratch, what do they need to get started to apply for the grant?
It'll walk you through it. They're gonna make you prove a few things, and they have a company, TechSoup, I believe
Yeah, yeah, TechSoup. Yep.
is who they're gonna verify. You're gonna give them some information to verify you're a nonprofit. They're gonna verify your website, make sure you have a legit, like, functioning website. But again, it's an easy process, and it'll walk you through it. You're gonna be pleasantly surprised if you've applied for any other grant, how easy this all
Yeah.
is.
How long does it take to get approved where you can start getting in there and posting ads?
Not long. Sometimes they'll kick you back and want something else, or you didn't do something just right, but you're looking at days to weeks. It's not a long process.
Excellent. Excellent. When you look at, because you also help nonprofits with this process, and we'll post info to Mansell Media, and we'll post a link to Clay's profile on LinkedIn if you want to connect with him. But when you look at folks who've gone ahead, gotten a grant, or energized or started using existing grant that they've been using for fundraising all along. When folks start working with recruitment of volunteers in particular and posting ads around that, what do you think separates people who get real results from people who don't? What are the top things that once people get started, they need to really think about?
Getting started. Most
Mm,
nonprofits are not recruiting volunteers
mm,
at all. Like that's what we see, and you even saw it after COVID. They lost their base.
mhm,
I deal with several nonprofits that really almost function now without volunteers, and I've
mhm.
really talked to them about that in detail. Like it's okay now to start asking again. I know in 2020 and 2021 it was a little weird. Let's not ask for volunteers, but we've not gotten over that in the nonprofit world. If you were in Mississippi, if you were to measure our volunteers, it's significantly down than what it was in 2019. If you start asking for volunteers through your social medias, through your websites, through your Google Ad Grant program, you will see people that are excited that you asked them. They're wanting to volunteer. They miss it, but it's a hard proposition just to pick up the phone and call an organization and say, "Hey, I'm interested in volunteering." The organization needs to put the ask out. So once you put the ask out, whatever organization is putting the ask out, they're going to reap the rewards, and get those volunteers that have been wanting to volunteer for the last year.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also important. I do a little bit when I'm doing training, I'll look at the most recent Google Trends, and y'all, you can go check this out. I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. I'll just look at Google Trends and I'll look for the search term volunteer opportunities near me because it's just a generic a lot of people use that term. And while it has dropped a bit, it's maintaining pretty consistently over the past couple of years. 3 years ago, it was at an all-time high right after the pandemic. Folks were like really wanting to get back to volunteering. And now it's kind of flattened out. It's a little bit lower, but it's still way higher than it was like 6 years ago. And so people are really going to Google looking for this resource, looking for a place. And I would just also add to what you said, have a rapid response plan at the ready.
Yeah.
If people indicate they're interested, you need to get back with them within one business day. And I'm not kidding. So if you're a team of one who wears many hats, it's time to bring on a few volunteers to help you with this. And also, if you have some way you can automate a little bit to just let people know, hey, we got your application or we got your interest. We'll be right back. Maybe it's some way to automate an email just to let people know that you've received their interest, or have them book a call with you right from a link on your website. Have people go straight to your website and book a 15-minute call with you. So you're not asking people to email back and forth. Or let's say you have, like you said, an annual or a monthly volunteer meeting, just put an RSVP where people can RSVP. Don't make people go back and forth. I see so many websites where people, it's like, call so and so. Okay, I call so and so, nobody answers. I leave a message. Then they call me. I can't answer. They leave a message. I'm going back and forth. Same with email. And people nowadays, they want instant results. And you're capturing lightning in a bottle when somebody's really excited about volunteering. That's at the moment that they have that impulse to help. You need to capture that. So I think, and I love, I love the opportunity, the kind of blue ocean opportunity that's there for folks. If nobody else is advertising on Google for volunteers, your ad's going to show a lot.
Yeah.
And your organization is going to be the beneficiary of people who are interested. So if people have, let's say people started doing their Google ads and they're not seeing results, what do you recommend then? If they're like, look, I did what Clay said. I got the Google round. I put the ads up. People aren't responding. What do you think is usually the problem there?
It could be your website, and we mentioned that. It's gotta be super easy. If you have an unlimited amount of money, which is basically what's gonna happen when you get your Google ad grant, you should see it increase. Like, you should feel it. Whether the phone that rang 3 times a day is now ringing 4 times, the email should be coming in, or your contact form, however you're doing it. And if you're not, revisit that grant, revisit the ads, and launch multiples. I mean, there's no way when you basically have an unlimited amount of money and you're putting your organization out there. Now, it may not happen immediately. Like, it may not happen day one because Google's going to learn your ads and your grant, and they're going to crawl your website, and they're going to kind of figure things out. And you'll probably get a message that it may say that it's in learning. They change how they do it about every 5 minutes with Google, but it will take a little bit of days to do it. But within that first 30-day window, if you were to look back at your analytics, if your analytics set back up on your website, you should feel it. There will be a marked increase in all the visits to your website, your phone calls, your contact forms. I mean, it's a big piece of pie, a big piece of money that you've got. So you'll feel it. If you don't, we need to adjust and make sure it's serving. Like, you'll get a report, you can look and make sure that that has served. And another thing, your ad can get kicked back. Let's say you have an event with guns or liquor.
Mm.
It will kick you out. We do a private school, and they actually don't qualify for the Google Ad grant, but they do have Google Ads. Well, they did a raffle, and one of the raffles was a gun. Well, that violates all sorts of rules. We had our social media ads get rejected, and I knew it, but I just didn't think about it. So there's things that will happen if you're, and this is a little bit more on the social media, but if your ads are not set to serve above 21, and let's say you have like a bourbon tasting, you're going to create all sorts of issues. So that's good information if you're brand new to the Google world, and social media ads as well. There's weird things that could happen, that could pause your ads. So that's why the grant requires you to log in once a month. So you're monitoring that. So you're looking at any errors, and they'll start suggesting stuff to you. You'll get lots of suggestions on what you should be doing with your grant, or with your ad. So be watching for those, and learn, as they say, consider this keyword. And you may say that's not me, and you can X out of it. But if you're like, oh man, I should have thought about that, be sure to add it
Yeah.
to your keywords.
I think too, you get to control what copy you put in
Uh-huh.
the results. So the title, the link that people click on, you can control what that says. And then the description underneath it. And you want to keep it into a certain limited amount of number of characters, but you can control that. And I can't tell you how many, comms audits I've done for nonprofits where I see that they haven't paid attention to that description of their page. It's called a snippet or
Uh-huh.
meta description, and so you'll see like something generic or the first sentence that's on that web page. And so Google's just
Yeah.
taking whatever's there because you haven't said it. So you can set up like multiple ads and kind of just play around with your call to action and see which works. The cool thing is data doesn't lie, especially online. People are going to click or not click. They're going to feel like they resonate with what you're saying or they're not. And it's, pretty quickly you can see, oh, that's not working. We're not going to do that anymore. Let's try this. Oh, this one's working really well. So you have to be a little bit, I think, of a, quote unquote scientist. I don't even want to use that term because it's freaking people out right now.
Yeah.
But you just need to, like, marketing is a 360-degree process. You think you know what your audience wants to hear, you put it out there and you wait and see what happens. And when they respond, it's either they're responding or they're not responding or they're not responding in the right way. And you make tweaks. And that's just normal. So people should never feel like they're failing
Uh-huh.
at any of this type of marketing strategy because it's the only failure is not trying it and then making adjustments as you go. If you don't do that, then you are failing. But other than that, some things aren't going to fly. They're just not going to fly. And then you'll know, okay, that doesn't fly, but this other thing
And
does.
it'll be fun to figure that out. Like, you're
Yeah.
gonna learn stuff about your organization that you may not have known, like what resonates with your
Hmm.
followers. And there'll be sometimes it almost upsets you. You're like, well, I had no idea that that is what I spent 3 hours on this ad and I threw this one up, and those are the words that work. But you're dead on that headline. Like that's when you're scrolling, when you look at Google, you're scrolling real quick, you're just glancing at that headline. So experiment with what works on that headline and then the description's right under it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say stay away from volunteers needed. Everybody says that. Stand out, have some personality, and be specific about what you want. Volunteers needed. It's like, well, everybody says volunteers needed. Like that's not standing out. I was doing a training, I was making the distinction between the way that your audience probably thinks and the keywords they use and the keywords that you use inside your organization. Perfect example, because nonprofits are so wonky and also very acronym focused. And so, like, people who work in animal shelters, for example, will call the work they do animal welfare. And, so they'll go animal welfare volunteers needed. Volunteers out in the community, they're saying a volunteer dog walker. That's what they're typing in Google. They're not saying animal welfare volunteers.
Yeah,
So you will learn the colloquialisms and what your audience, and they may talk about your nonprofit in a way that you're in your cause impact area in a way and using words that you never would have thought of using.
that's a really good point because we're all guilty of that. Like in marketing, I use words that just the general public they don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good thought.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Clay, this has been super helpful. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and giving us some of your
Absolutely.
insights. I think, folks, if you haven't yet decided to do this, please do it. It is one of the biggest opportunities that's missed by most nonprofits when it comes to volunteer recruitment. Where do you find volunteers? You find them on Google, and it doesn't matter what age they are. Everybody's using Google. Some platforms, it's 1A, like TikTok, it's going to be younger volunteers. It's not going to be seniors. Google, everybody uses Google. So it's a great place to go to find volunteers. So if we haven't talked you into it yet, you're being resistant. I'm just going to say, flip the script and let's get opportunity and abundance mindset going because you can make this happen. Clay, I like to always ask as I close out with folks what they are most excited about in the year ahead. So I'm going to ask you that. What excites you most about this coming year, the rest of 2026? And it can be anything, business, personal.
Well, business wise, Mansell Media we've got a cool niche going for us. We get lots of referrals and we see that. And that's exciting for a business owner when other customers are referring you. That's very fulfilling. Personally, I got 3 kids, 5, 12, and 17 that I love chasing and watching their sporting events. And summer's fixing to be here. So we're looking forward to that and trying to find a few more hours in each day so we can get it all done.
Else. I hear you. I hear you with that. And how can folks get, maybe their nonprofit wants to dive in and they want to actually have some expert guidance and work with a media company. How can folks get in touch with you if they're interested in exploring, maybe it's working with you around Google Grants, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's their social media strategy. Maybe it's their website. What's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. If you Google us, we're going to be the first search results. If you Google Mansell Media, we'll come up. But our website's mansellmedia.net. It's got chat features and our phone numbers all over it. And I'd love you to reach out. I'd love to hear from you if you set the Google Grant ad up yourself. But let me know. Let me know how it went. Or if you just have a single question, you can reach out to us through there. All our contact information is on our website. It'd be the best way to find cell phones. We actually have a cool phone system that when you call our phone number, it forwards to our cell phones if we're not in the office. So we're super easy to track down.
That's awesome. Talk about rapid response plan, y'all.
Oh, you said the rapid response plan on the nonprofits. That's great advice for everything they do. Like think about a donor or just a question about an event or buying a ticket. People want that instant
Yeah.
response. So set it up on all aspects of your nonprofit.
Yeah, I mean, people just don't, folks will ask me, I'll say 1 business day, seriously. So people will not wait anymore, and they'll be off to the next nonprofit that gets back to them
Absolutely.
quicker. And the other thing is like people are volunteering for more than one org, but we could go down that rabbit hole. We're not going to. But Clay, this has been a fantastic conversation. Again, those of you who are listening, if you do not or are not leveraging your Google Grant, if you have one already and you're not leveraging it for volunteers and volunteer recruitment, or you're not or you don't have one yet, you haven't applied, let's get to it. If you need volunteers, this is a no-brainer for you. So get to it. If you need help, reach out to Clay, talk to him. If you tried it and it didn't work and you're embarrassed, it's okay. Clay already told you, you can get in touch with him. He will not, no judgment zone.
No joke.
So, we do what we got to do with what we have when we have it. And so, but I'm sure Clay's group would be happy to help you as well. So thanks for joining me today. If you listened to this and you thought it was helpful, and maybe you want your Marcoms folks or your fundraising folks or your executive director or whoever to have a listen and get the bug about Google Grants, please refer them to this. If you like this episode, give us a rating. We like 5-star ratings because that means that we get shown to more people in the podcast platforms. And we like to get a review and hear what you think about the show. So if you've enjoyed this, let us know and join us next week, same time, same place on the Volunteer Nation. Take care, everybody. And thanks, Clay, for joining us.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Volunteer Nation podcast. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review so that we can reach more people like you who want to improve the impact of their good cause. For more tips and notes from the show, check us out at tobijohnson.com. We'll see you next week for another installment of Volunteer Nation.